In this guide, we'll go over all of the actions the Black Mage learns from level 50 to 90 in order. We'll go over how each action is meant to be used and when applicable, the recommended way to use it. We will also summarize changes to the rotation at level 60, 70 and 80. In the summary, we will take time to outline both an opener and how it leads into the general rotation and also briefly go over stat priorities. I will assume you have already seen the Endwalker edition of my guide, which covers level 1 to 50, and I will also assume you are acquainted with abbreviations like GCD, OGCD and weaving. If either of these aspects are not familiar to you, please view the corresponding videos in the top right corner. Now then, at level 52, you learn the ability Ley Lines, which places down a circle on the floor around you. While standing in the circle, your cast times are reduced significantly, enabling you to cycle through your rotation much faster. You should make a point to use this buff as often as you can, but make sure to pick your spots, so you don't risk having to choose between damage output or not eating a boss mechanic. At level 54, you learn the ability Sharpcast, which makes the next random proc chance guaranteed to occur immediately upon casting the relevant spell. Primarily this applies to Thunder and Fire 1, where you can ensure a Firestarter or Thundercloud proc when you want it. Try to use it as close to on cooldown as possible. Weave it after either Blizzard 3, Fire 3 or one of the instant casts from your procs to avoid losing damage output to the animation lock. While a Thundercloud proc is better than a Firestarter proc, simply using Sharpcast as much as possible is more valuable than proccing the right thing. At level 56, you learn the trait Enochian, which simply increases all damage you do while either Astral Fire or Umbral Ice is active. This bonus does affect all of your spells, so you should make sure to enter Astral Fire or Umbral Ice as the first action you do in a fight now. Additionally, casting Fire 2 in Astral Fire now boosts the potency of Flare until you swap out of Astral Fire. You already cast 3 Fire 2s per Astral Fire state before Flare, so this does not really change your AoE rotation. At level 58, you learn the spell Blizzard 4, which is only usable in Umbral Ice state and replaces Blizzard 1 on single target. Using Blizzard 4 grants 3 Umbral Hearts, which, while in the Astral Fire state, negates the mana cost increasing effect of Astral Fire. As such, at least one Blizzard 4 should be used in every Umbral Ice state. Keep in mind that, like Freeze, Blizzard 4 does not refresh the duration of Umbral Ice. Speaking of which, Freeze is upgraded to also grant 3 Umbral Hearts on use, so the AoE rotation is similarly extended to always include at least one Freeze cast. Every fire spell in Astral Fire spends 1 Umbral Heart to negate this mana cost increase. Except when used on Flare specifically, it instead only costs 2/3 of all your mana instead of all of it. However, Flare also always spends all of your Umbral Hearts. For single target, this mostly results in being able to stay in Astral Fire state and cast a few more Fire 1s. For AoE, your Astral Fire state still starts with casting 3 Fire 2s, never 4, but now you cast 2 Flares. At level 60, you learn the spell Fire 4, which is only usable in Astral Fire state and replaces Fire 1 as the spammed spell on single target. However, Fire 4 does not refresh the Astral Fire state, and so you only have enough time to cast around 3 or 4 Fire 4s before you have to cast Fire 1 to refresh the buff. Due to your mana limitations, entering Astral Fire with 3 Umbral Hearts and a full mana bar, you have enough mana for 6 Fire 4s, 1 Fire 1, as well as mana for Thunder 3 if you need to cast it normally. As you no longer cast Fire 1 very much, you can save the Firestarter proc until either you need to move, if you need to refresh the Astral Fire state a second time for any reason, or as the final spell before switching to Umbral Ice. In the same vein, due to the significantly higher potency value of Fire 4, it is no longer as important to cast Thundercloud procs for the upfront damage, and so you should keep the procs for movement or to reapply Thunder if it or the proc itself is about to run out. You can also apply Thunder at specific intervals where it fits. Your rotation has changed significantly since level 50. Open a fight by casting Sharpcast and Ley Lines. Then cast Fire 3, Thunder 3, 3 Fire 4s, Fire 1, and then make use of the Sharpcasted Thundercloud for Thunder 3 and Weave Mana Font, followed by 2 more Fire 4s. After that, move to the general rotation, which starts by using Blizzard 3 and weaving Sharpcast if it is available, then Thunder 3 and Blizzard 4. Preferably in that order, but as long as all 3 are cast and you can enter Fire State with a mostly full mana bar, you can swap Thunder 3 and Blizzard 4's order. If necessary, cast Blizzard 4 an extra time while waiting for mana. After that, cast Fire 3, 3 Fire 4s, Fire 1 and optionally Thunder 3 if there is a Thundercloud proc and Thunder 3 is about to run out. Then another 3 Fire 4s and then circle back to Blizzard 3. Generally, you want to cast Thunder 3 for the application of the dot, so it should be used whenever it runs out, and can be skipped in Umbral Ice state. However, the alternative options to pass time with in that state tends to be Blizzard 4, so it is better to try and plan around doing the dot application in Umbral Ice state. Remember to use Sharpcast and ley lines as often as possible. For AoE, the Umbral Ice state replaces Blizzard 3 with Blizzard 2, Blizzard 4 with Freeze, and Thunder 3 with Thunder 2. The Astral Fire state instead casts Fire 2 3 times in a row and then Flare twice. Using Sharpcast for Thunder 2 enables you to more reliably have Thunder 2 to weave Swiftcast and Mana Font for even more flares. With the introduction of Fire 4, making Firestarter procs much less frequent, there is also a trick you can do to do a little extra damage. Be aware that it is not easy to perform and the opportunity does not come consistently, so see this as something extra to practice on if you like. Let's call it the Transpose Weave. If you gain a Firestarter proc and a Thundercloud proc, enter Umbral Ice without spending them, use Blizzard 4 and then the Thundercloud proc. Then, as late as possible in the GCD to make sure your mana max is out, use Transpose to switch to Astral Fire 1, and then use Fire 3. With more spells learned later on, this gets easier to perform, but keep in mind that the gain is rather small, so if you feel this is too difficult, you can opt to not do it. At level 62, you learn the ability Between the Lines. As long as ley lines are up, you can use this ability to teleport back to them. You can combine Ethereal Manipulation and Between the Lines to jump quickly to safety and then return to the ley lines once it is safe again. At level 64, Thunder 2 is permanently promoted to Thunder 4. This simply improves its damage significantly, but otherwise your rotation is unchanged. At level 66, you learn the ability Triplecast, which enables you to cast 3 spells instantly back to back. Triplecast can also hold up to 2 charges, so you can both use it just once for 3 spells and keep 1 for mobility, or you can use both, one at a time, to cast 6 spells instantly in a row. You can even add Swiftcast to the chain to cast 7 spells back to back. You can adjust your opener to make use of both Triplecasts. Open with Sharpcast, Fire 3, Thunder 3, and then use Triplecast. Then use Fire 4, weaving both Mana Font and ley lines, and then 2 more Fire 4s. Then weave Triplecast again and cast Fire 1, followed by 2 Fire 4s, and then continue with the previously described general rotation. For AoE, you can make use of Triplecast for 2 instant flares, followed by Mana Font into another instant flare. At level 70, your elemental gauge is expanded with the Polyglot timer. Every 30 seconds of being in either Umbral Ice or Astral Fire, you are given a Polyglot. You can hold only 1 Polyglot, but the timer will keep ticking, making clever timing let you use 2 Polyglots in quick succession. Making use of Transpose while not being able to attack lets you keep the timer ticking. You also learn the spell Foul, which costs 1 Polyglot and does AoE damage with a cast time. Similar to Scathe, Foul is unaffected by both Umbral Ice and Astral Fire. Unlike Scathe, Foul does great damage and should be used in the Umbral Ice state when available. This means for your general rotation that you should use Blizzard 3, Blizzard 4, and usually Foul and or Thunder 3 in every Umbral Ice state. Due to the amount of spells in each Umbral Ice state, you should now always have full mana by the time you run out of things to do and move to Astral Fire. You can opt to only cast Thunder 3 when it needs to be reapplied now, regardless of whether that is in Umbral Ice or Astral Fire. Since level 60, your Umbral Ice state has been expanded with the Foul cast, and your opener has been boosted by having access to Triplecast, letting you make your way through your mana much faster at the start of a fight. You can save Triplecasts for mobility in a tough spot. Similarly, Between the Lines let you easily return to your ley lines in case you get forced out of them. Thunder 2 is also upgraded to Thunder 4, although this doesn't change your rotation. At level 72, you learn the spell Despair, which is a single target version of Flare. As such, every Astral Fire state on 1 or 2 targets should be ended with Despair. It also changes your opener slightly. Sharpcast and cast Fire 3 into Thunder 3, then Triplecast into Fire 4 and late weave ley lines. Then cast 2 more Fire 4s, followed by Swiftcast and another Fire 4. Then use Triplecast again, Despair and weave Mana Font. Then cast another Fire 4 and finish off the opener with Despair again. You can also use a slightly different opener if you prefer to save at least one Triplecast for movement later. Your general rotation's Astral Fire state is mostly unchanged, you just add Despair at the end. At level 74, Sharpcast's cooldown is cut in half, enabling you to use Sharpcast in most Umbral Ice states. Aside from using Sharpcast much more regularly, this doesn't change your rotation. At level 76, you learn the spell Umbral Soul. While in Umbral Ice, using Umbral Soul increases your Umbral Ice stage by 1 and produces 1 Umbral Heart. It also resets the duration, so this means that while in a fight, or generally in a dungeon, once you enter either Umbral Ice or Astral Fire, you can use Transpose, followed by repeated use of Umbral Soul to start every attack opportunity in Umbral Ice state with 3 Umbral Hearts and possibly even a Polyglot. This does not change your actual attack rotation, however. At level 80, Foul's cast time is made instant. You can now also hold 2 Polyglots at a time. And you learn the spell Xenoglossy, which acts as a single target alternative to Foul. For 2 or more targets, you still just use Foul. Since you can now stockpile more Polyglots, you can more easily keep one for movement, since Foul and Xenoglossy both are instant. Since level 70, the biggest change to your rotation is the addition of Despair, both for your opener and every single one of your Astral Fire states. Shorter cooldown on Sharpcast also gives you more reliable procs, and Umbral Soul lets you stay ready the moment an attack opportunity presents itself, at least when you have attacked once. Xenoglossy is also introduced as a single target alternative to Foul, which both are now instant too. For the previously mentioned Transpose Weave, you can use Xenoglossy in place of a Thundercloud proc. At level 82, Fire 2 and Blizzard 2 are upgraded to High Fire 2 and High Blizzard 2 respectively. This simply increases their potencies and makes them much flashier. While High Blizzard 2 now does more damage than Freeze, you want to use Freeze for the Umbral Hearts, so neither of these upgrades change your rotation. At level 84, Mana Font's cooldown is reduced to only 2 minutes. This does not change your rotation, but does let you use this ability more often. At level 86, you learn the ability Amplifier, which instantly grants you a Polyglot. You should use this on cooldown. In your opener, weave this just before the ley lines. At level 88, Sharpcast now holds up to 2 charges. This mainly enables you to be more picky with when you wish to use Sharpcast, allowing you to target Thundercasts with it specifically more easily. Whenever you intend to cast Thunder 3 and Sharpcast is available, try to weave it in time. At level 90, your elemental gauge is expanded with the Paradox marker. When you enter Umbral Ice from Astral Fire 3 or Astral Fire from Umbral Ice 3 with 3 Umbral Hearts, you get the Paradox marker. The Paradox marker is spent on the new spell Paradox, which both Blizzard 1 and Fire 1 turns into while you have the Paradox marker. For the Astral Fire state, this doesn't change much, as Paradox replaces the Fire 1 cast you would do anyway in Astral Fire. In Umbral Ice, Paradox is instant and does a significant amount of damage, so you want to make time for the spell in every Umbral Ice state on 1 or 2 targets. Since you already had plenty to do in Umbral Ice, this enables you to not use Xenoglossy in Umbral Ice and save the Polyglot for movement later. It should be noted that Umbral Ice is the best time to spend Polyglots if you can plan it out that way. You can also produce the Paradox marker in downtime by using Umbral Soul to reach 3 Umbral Hearts, then Transpose twice, and then Umbral Soul back up to 3 Umbral Ice again. To round off, let's start with the max level opener, followed by the general rotation it leads into. Then we go over general rotation tips, including AoE. Finally, we talk briefly about stat priorities. A little forward, The Black Mage has many ways to customize and optimize their general rotation. One example is the Transpose Weave, and making use of all sorts of tricks to reach Umbral Ice 3 or Astral Fire 3 without using the weaker versions of spells associated with the elemental switching in the first place. I will only be going over the so-called standard rotations and leave it up to you to make the deep dive into the super optimizations yourself once you have mastered this. Now, for the opener. Up to 12 seconds before combat starts, cast Sharpcast. Then, 3 seconds before combat starts, cast Fire 3 followed by Thunder 3. Then cast Triplecast. Fire 4, and then, if you intend to use a tincture, a so-called burst potion, this is the time. Fire 4 again, and weave Amplifier and Ley Lines. Fire 4 again and weave Swiftcast followed by another Fire 4 and Triplecast. Then cast Despair, weave Mana Font, Fire 4 and weave Sharpcast and then Despair again. This then leads into the general rotation, although this first Umbral Ice sequence may be beneficial to include Xenoglossy very early on and also take the opportunity to reapply Thunder 3 during the Umbral Ice state. You can also slightly adjust the opener if you would like to keep a Triplecast for mobility. The Umbral Ice state should always include Blizzard 3, Blizzard 4 and Paradox. Xenoglossy can be kept for when you need to weave abilities, or for movement, or could be aggressively used in Umbral Ice state if you're about to gain a third Polyglot when you already have 2, or otherwise know you won't need the Polyglot. Thunder 3 only needs to be cast to refresh its dot, and so try to plan Sharpcast for when you know your next Fire Paradox comes after your next Thunder 3. It is of course more convenient to use Thunder 3 in Umbral Ice, but you should have enough time to use it in Astral Fire as well. Just make sure to choose your spots. Make sure to use Mana Font, Ley Lines and Amplifier as often as possible. A common way to make use of abilities without getting messed up by animation locking is to plan Xenoglossy or Firestarter procs around it. For instance, you can finish off an Astral Fire state with Xenoglossy, Triplecast, Despair, Mana Font, Fire 4 and Despair. For 2 targets specifically, you can make clever use of Sharpcast with Thunder 3 to apply it to both targets. You should also replace Xenoglossy with Foul. For AoE, your rotation is significantly different. The general rotation is as follows: High Blizzard 2, Freeze, Thunder 4, 3 high Fire 2s and then 2 flares. If you have Mana Font and a sufficiently large Ether available, you can also do a special Astral Fire sequence with only 2 Fire 2s. First, weave Triplecast after the first Fire 2 and Swiftcast after the second. After the second flare, weave Mana Font, and after the third flare, weave an Ether, letting you do a 4th flare. Make sure to Sharpcast after High Blizzard 2 to ensure Thunder 4 proccing Thundercloud. Now, regarding stat priorities, remember that in nearly every case, item level beats having the optimal secondary stats on gear. So as long as the item has intelligence on it, go for the one with the highest item level. As a Black Mage, your first priority should be having enough spell speed to comfortably do your rotation. This is entirely up to your preference, although many Black Mages will try to go for at least around 1300 spell speed, which corresponds to a GCD of about 2.34. If you lean more towards a heavy spell speed gear set, then you will generally not have enough critical hit for to beat Determination and Direct Hit, and so you should prioritize critical hit lower for this reason. On the other hand, if you prefer a low spell speed gear set, you should instead go for as much critical hit as possible, following up with Determination and Direct Hit after that. Remember that having the perfectly optimized gear is only important in the most cutting edge of content, so for general play, you can use the gear you like, as long as your item level meets the challenge. That is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or anything to add, please leave a comment down below. Fun fact, a polyglot is a person who has mastered many languages, and xenoglossia is the strange phenomenon where someone is capable of speaking, understanding, or writing a language they never learned in the first place. Foul can also refer to foul language to keep that theme,